Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh.
So the Oscars, they have been announced. The Oscar nominations have been announced. And it didn't really bother me that much. I mean, I kind of knew a lot of the stuff. There was more surprises for me than I think there were for you. Would you say that?
I don't know. I don't know what you think is a surprise.
Well,
Zone of Interest.
Zone of Interest was a surprise. American Fiction was a surprise. I think I'm going to go try to see that tomorrow because I saw the trailer and it does look interesting to me. I like that kind of humor. I like that kind of like snarky, but then this guy gets in over his head. He writes a book in a way that is just totally against what he stands for. And then he kind of gets a little bit in over his head on that. And it's like, oh, now how do you backpedal from something like this? So, and I love Jeffrey Wright and obviously Sterling K. Brown must be awesome in this. So he got nominated for that movie, American Fiction, and it also got nominated for Best Picture. I'm glad that The Zone of Interest got nominated for Best Picture. You have not seen that one yet, correct?
No, it's not here yet.
Okay, all right. It will. This will help it come out more, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, it's coming, but it's not here yet. So Today was All of Us Strangers. I wanted to see that.
Okay.
Tomorrow is, I almost said High Fidelity, American Fiction. And then I have to wait for Zone of Interest, and I think that's it.
Really? Okay.
Once I see American Fiction, I will have seen all the acting nominations and then Zone of Interest. But that happens. If you think about it, the pattern's normally similar. All Quiet on the Western Front all of a sudden snuck in there at the last minute.
What's cool is that the movies that got nominated, I'll go through them very quickly. The Holdovers, American Fiction, Zone of Interest, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives and Poor Things. All the movies that have been out in theaters for a while, with the one exception of The Holdovers, which I'm sure we will talk about on our podcast at some point. We spent like 30 minutes talking about it last time we talked. We've done episodes on all of those. Barbie, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, and Poor Things. And then we're about to talk about Maestro today. So that's pretty good. I mean, we don't even do like an episode every week or anything. And we've curated a list of films that we've talked about that obviously other people seem to think that they're at the very least worth interacting with and potentially Best Picture of the Year. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like realizing that I don't have to get my heart racing, that I have to see this and I have to see that and I have to see this and I have to see that. I hate that feeling. And I it's happened to me a couple of times where I'm like, oh, I got to catch up. And normally I do without any issue, but it's also really, okay, now I can elect to see something that I might want to see. The Boy and the Heron. Yes. I went and saw that.
Oh, cool.
Versus seeing something that might potentially get nominated for the Oscar on hold for the nominations to come out. Because the truth of the matter is we've talked about this a gazillion times. We can't see everything. We can't talk about everything. We just don't have time. We don't have the money. And even if we did, I don't think we would be those kind of people anyway. But now that certain things haven't been nominated, I'm like, phew, I don't have to see that until I can, whenever it's convenient to see it, whenever it's on streaming or when it's like my choice to go. Not that it's not a choice, and it's not a hardship on any level to have to go see a movie that's nominated for an Oscar. Oh my God. It's not a hardship. But so I'm happy with the list. I'm happy with a lot of things. At first, I'll talk about, if you'll indulge me, I'll talk about the positive first. The diversity, there's a person of color in every category. There's 2 openly gay people competing for Oscars. One who hasn't competed for Best Supporting Actress award since she was 13 years old, Jodie Foster. Remember, I texted you. Mm-hmm. I said, Jodie Foster, and she has never been better. There is something so relaxing about her in this movie, something so real and true. I think she's finally become the actress that she's hoped to be this whole entire time. And of course, she's in True Detective, and I just saw the first episode. I haven't seen the second episode. And she's so relaxed in what she's doing, and I'm happy for her. So the diversity was great. The nominations were great. There America Ferrera, who knew? I mean, we talked her up
Yeah.
and we loved her from that movie. And so teetering into everybody exploding over Barbie, Margot Robbie, not
yes.
Greta Gerwig. So teetering back into the realism of the Oscars and not necessarily overt positivity. First of all, good for America Ferrera. I actually watched Barbie again last night, and it's a charming performance. It's heart-pounding in places. It's really, really subtle. And it's not Oscar contention. It's not an Oscar contending movie. Well, first of all, performance. What does that mean? Okay. She affected a lot of people. A lot of people reported in that they cried during her monologue. It really had a lot of people talking about that performance. She is the reason why the movie takes place. Her character does the things that she does, and that's why the whole narrative unfolds. And she's an important person in that movie. So why not? Why not have the everyday middle-aged mom, almost middle-aged, she's a little younger than that. Well, actually, she's right there. Why not have the real person, the person who could just walk right off the screen, who could talk to you exactly how she talks to you in the movie, and why not have her be nominated for an Oscar? Why is that not Oscar caliber? It was believable. It was true. It was textured. She has some really rich, great moments in that movie, including the monologue, which is fantastically written, my opinion. People go back and forth on that. So why not? And I just wish that we could have some kind of embargo the day of the Oscar nominations, that you're not allowed to say anything except for congratulations, because
give them a day.
Yeah. One day, 24 hours. They are now Oscar nominees, for better, for worse, whether or not you thought they deserved it or not. They have accomplished something in their life. And sports analogies aren't my thing, but I often wonder why people don't do the same things to sports teams, sports balls. Somebody said that to me once. Yeah. Anyway,
but I think that to the one-to-one comparison between sports and something like this is that there's value judgments, or there are different rubrics for categorizing and determining the worth of a performance versus like these two teams showed up on this day and played this game, and one team got more points than the other team, therefore that team won. Like that's a little bit more cut and dried. So you could kind of say like in football or baseball, there's kind of like all-star teams, or in football, it's the Pro Bowl, like there are things where it's like, so-and-so, this quarterback is a Pro Bowl quarterback. Well, that I could compare those two things, like who says they're a Pro Bowl quarterback? Well, whoever voted on it says they're a Pro Bowl quarterback. There's metrics you can use. This person scored this many, threw this many touchdowns, passed for this many yards, all of that stuff. But ultimately it's still like a judgment call, and it's the same thing with these where it's a judgment call. So I mean,
but if you really wanted to break it down, and excuse my ignorance when it comes to sports, yes, there are skills that are being played that you can say, okay, they played those skills better, they used those skills better. But there are acting techniques and crafts and intentions, and whoever chose the right verb, whoever chose the right intention, came across more honest and more real, and that's why they were considered Oscar worthy. And isn't the expression any given Sunday? At any point in time, any team can win the game. So it's not necessarily, statistically, you can break it down. Yes, are you expecting Robert De Niro to give an Oscar caliber performance? Yes, you are. But I see what you're saying, and I know that it's flawed. The analogy I'm using is flawed, but this is what we do in this world that we've created. This is what we do in this society. And everybody celebrates that Super Bowl ring, and it's like a huge deal when somehow and I get it, millionaires giving each other golden trophies. I get it. Some millionaires giving some very rich people golden statues. I get it. But why is one considered an untarnished accomplishment and one is considered critically marred by subjectivity? So it's and the greatest quarterback in the world can run out to the field, get sacked, and next thing you know, he's a broken knee. He's done. He's out. Okay. So statistically speaking, that wasn't what's supposed to happen. And then all of those supporting players who usually rely on that quarterback to do what they do, now have to play the game in a different way than they would have if their key player wasn't there. So it's all kind of subjective on some level. Yes, physical skill is a lot different than emotional skill. I give you that. I don't think one is harder than the other. I think that both are difficult for their own thing. But yes, physical strength and being able to physically do what those gargantuan men do on the football field every Sunday or Monday or whenever it is, they're immensely talented. I'm not taking anything away. I'm just saying, why does everybody immediately jump on this bandwagon of trying to pull apart people and their accomplishments when it comes to the Oscars? Well, just a question.
And specifically for the acting and directing awards, it's interesting to see like what does this person elevate the material that was given to them, especially for like directors who aren't writer directors and for actors who aren't writer actors, for lack of a better word. Bradley Cooper, for example, who did not get nominated, but a writer actor or a writer director, if you have a script, like, I mean, we talked about, we haven't talked about it yet, but Alexander Payne is a good example for The Holdovers. Like, I felt like he did much better with this script for The Holdovers than he did, has done in previous films. I feel like that script was elevated by Alexander Payne being a part of the filmmaking process. And so like, is America Ferrera, she had a part that was written and she played that part. Did she elevate that part past a certain level that put her into this upper echelon of actresses, and now she gets the accolades for that? I mean, you could say that about same thing about Divine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers too. Now, I haven't seen The Color Purple, Danielle Brooks. Emily Blunt. She played a woman in a Christopher Nolan movie, which there's been all kinds of discourse about how Christopher Nolan writes women. So, does she elevate that part? So, those are the discussions
that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way to put it. And obviously 6,000 people of the Academy did think America Ferrera did elevate that part to the point where she's now an Academy Award nominee. So that said, real quick, tap into the whole Barbie explosion, and which I kind of enjoy that people are going to bat for the in defense of Greta Gerwig not being nominated and Margot Robbie not being nominated. And I would like to state my yearly thing about, I don't really believe in snubs. Snub connotates they purposely didn't nominate them. I just think they just didn't make the top 5 or they didn't make the top 10, whatever it may be. Legit, I think there's only been one snub that I would call a snub, and that's Ben Affleck for Argo, and that's because he won everything else and wasn't even nominated. For some reason, they don't particularly care for him in Hollywood on that level. I don't know why. At least this is what you read. I don't get it. I thought Argo was a great movie, deserving of all the accolades, and he made that movie, so he deserved to at least be nominated. If you're not going to nominate him now, with the 10 pictures, 5 directors, that's a complex.
Who do you get rid of? Who do you get rid of?
Yeah, that's the next question.
Come on.
That's good. Yeah,
You've
that's
got
the next
Justine
question.
Triet.
Yay!
I mean, come on. How do you get rid of her?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a point.
You haven't seen Zone of Interest, but Jonathan Glazer needs to be in there. In my opinion, he needs to be in there. I mean, people aren't going to touch Martin Scorsese, and then you've got
as well. They shouldn't.
Yeah, you've got the shoe-in movie of the year in Oppenheimer, and Christopher Nolan sitting there. He's not going to be denied that spot, or that spot's not going to be denied to him. So the last Yorgos Lanthimos, maybe I don't know.
That becomes the next question, and that's an impossible question to answer because I go by the creed that these are the 5 nominees. These are the 5 nominations. Okay. That said, small, minor discussion as quickly as I possibly can make it. It's not normally in my nature to believe, not that I'm naive and not that I don't know it exists. Misogyny, sexism, homophobia, it all exists. And it does play into how people see things and how people choose things. Crash, Brokeback Mountain. I mean, the only thing you can end with that discussion is how can that cinematic art, Brokeback Mountain, have not won over Crash, which I thought was okay at the time. It's definitely fallen apart on another watch.
I'm the same as you. I thought it was okay at the time, but then you try to revisit it and you're like, oof.
I was with it. I followed it. I thought it was touching when it snowed. The song starts. I swelled. It ended. I was like, okay. He's very in your face with his points in that movie. The point is, though, that point, let me just get that word out of the way, is that these things exist. And if one wants to hang a coat on sexism in Hollywood, it would be very easy to do, because it dawned on me when I was thinking about it yesterday that Poor Things and Barbie are the same movie. Narrative-wise, it's the same movie. Person living as a young, naive, unaware of the world around them. All of a sudden, there's an existential crisis on some kind of level. Which is forced upon them by somebody else, Willem Dafoe, pushing her out the door, or wanting her to get married and doing all that legal stuff, but she wants to see the world first. America Ferraro creating Depressed Barbie, or whatever the name of that Barbie is. It's funny. It's much more clever than Depressed Barbie. And then the naive person goes out into the world and discovers who they are.
I think it's existential dread Barbie. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. That's so much better than Depressed Barbie. Existential dread Barbie. Yes, cellulite Barbie. Yes. And a man tries to stop them halfway through by going back to their world and destroying their world as they know it. Then the woman has to discover who they are, rise above all of it, come back to her land and make it better. Now, both are fantasies, both are fairy tales. And if you take yourself for a split second out of knowing Barbie for the last 50, 60 years of knowing Barbie, if you'd never seen Barbie before, the fantastical world of Barbie that you see in the Barbie movie would be just as fantastical as what it looks like in Poor Things. We're just so used to the pink and so used to what Barbie looks like. But if we had never seen that before, we would be as in awe as we should be anyway in that production designer.
It did get nominated.
Yeah, it should have. But my point is that, so you're right. Out of the 5, who would you take off? One discussion. Is there sexism that kept Greta Gerwig off, meaning they didn't like the message of her movie with the patriarchy and all that other stuff, but the message is the same in Poor Things. It's the exact same message.
If they didn't like the message, why did they give her and Noah Baumbach a nomination for the screenplay?
Well, from everything that I read, there's like a tier level of acceptance, which is pretty much how clubs work. There's
they throw her the screenplay.
Well, they give it to her because they can't deny her of that. And they give Ryan Gosling the nomination. They give America Ferrera. But would they give her the top prize of nominating 2 women directors, or assuming Justine stays on it? So it's just something that I've been pondering in my brain, that she could just be the 6th nominee and just not make the cut. It could be simple as that. Yeah. But with the backlash that the movie has accrued, with the whole everybody coming out and bashing that they're bashing on the patriarchy, and Bill Maher saying that the movie, this is what he said. This isn't verbatim what he said, but this is something like what he said. He said that the Mattel board is made up of 40% women, so it was unrealistic that the board was all men in the movie. And I so wish that I could just have a moment where I could pop into a famous person's life and go, wait, so your problem with the Barbie movie is that it's not realistic?
It's not accurate.
I think you need to put that blunt down, Bill, and take a split second and think about it. Because to me, that strikes me as Greta Gerwig really dug into something, and she dug up something. And the first thing that people do when they're uncomfortable is they defend the status quo. And I think Bill Maher's defending the status quo at that point. Anyway, it's a Barbie movie. It's well told. It's nominated for Best Picture. It probably, I don't know what it's going to win at this point, but it's deserving of being there. It just makes a person question and ponder certain things. Nothing major.
Well, and I'm also moving on to like Best Actress. I mean, we do have Lily Gladstone in there and Emma Stone in there too for Poor Things. And I guess Lily Gladstone's still like the front runner, but it is nice to see Sandra Hüller, I think is how you say her name, from Anatomy of a Fall. Yeah, and I haven't seen Naiad yet, so both Annette Bening and Jodie Foster's performances, I guess, were now. I saw somewhere where it was like Netflix was really pushing, they're really pushing certain movies, and they're trying to like. I guess because they haven't gotten a Best Picture award, whereas like Apple has with Coda. So
okay, right.
But either way, it seemed like they were kind of pushing, certain things, and I don't know. You said you liked Naiad, though, right?
I thought the movie was not as constructed as well as it could have been, but I was stunned by both performances, and in particular, Jodie Foster.
Okay.
The movie it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Usually, I have to have things pointed out to me of what makes a movie not great, but instinctually, I can always tell. But to articulate it, I have a hard time doing that sometimes. So let's start a podcast and talk about movies. But there's instinctually something off about that movie that structurally it doesn't 100% work. But the two performances are great, and it's Annette Bening, and sometimes. It's unfortunate that Annette Bening keeps getting nominated in years where one person happens to be the front runner. She's been the front runner a couple of times, twice actually, and she was beaten out twice by Hilary Swank. So that's a interesting little,
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Huh.
She American Beauty, and then Being Julia. Is it not Being Julia? Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah, Being Julia.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which she was fantastic in. And Hilary Swank won for Boys Don't Cry, deserved, and $1 Million Baby. One could argue. So, yeah, I would never speak about who I would take off the list because of what I said earlier. That's so disrespectful. They are now the Academy Award nominees of Best Actress. But one could have a heavy discussion over a couple drinks who might fit into this category, and it might be Margot Robbie. That said, she didn't make the cut, so there we are.
Celine Song got a nomination for Past Lives. So that's
well,
great.
there you go. Where's Greta Lee on the list?
You're right.
Where is
You're
she?
right.
6? Is she 7? Is she where is she? And also, I have to find this out. We always have these questions, and I never write them down. But my understanding is that the preferential ballots are for the picture. Is it also for all the other categories too?
I'm not sure. I knew that the ranked choice voting is what you're talking about, I think. So you say you not only give your top 5, you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they get more points the higher up they are on your list.
Right.
But I don't know if that's the case. I do know that these are isolated to the only people who voted for Best Original Screenplay are writers in the Academy. So directors can't, unless they're a writer, but directors in the Academy can't vote for the nominees. Now, once you get into this portion that we're in right now, I believe everybody votes for all these, don't they?
Yeah, we have to find. I have to do some investigation. So that's going to be my chore.
That's
this
you.
year.
That's you. You got to do the research.
You're 100% right. 100% right.
But so, I mean, as far as screenplay goes, the Holdovers, that screenplay, gosh, we had to talk about the Holdovers officially, but we both kind of gushed about the screenplay, and it's right in there. It weaves in. It's screenplay and directing, plus the amazing acting from Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sena and Deva and Joy Randolph. With all of those things not working, this movie is just it's an HBO movie from the 90s or even from the 80s. It is just that. You could just throw it out there and it plays every Saturday at 2 p.m. But all of those things lined up, and it is so much more than that. So I was bowled over by that movie.
I was thinking about this the other day. If you take one scene out of that movie and you were to read it, you would have been like, I've seen this a million times. This has been done a million times.
Yeah.
Okay. Mother loses son in Vietnam. Okay. Seen it. Mother has breakdown over son at Christmas party. Okay. Seen it. But whatever she does, now talking about elevating material and elevating a performance, she's so cold stone confident, but yet broken at the same time. Her performance is mesmerizing. And
it's a Captain Phillips
yes,
role.
it is. Yes, it is.
Not a Captain Phillips moment. It's a role. It's the whole thing.
One would discuss very heavily that scene when she's in the kitchen and she says he's really gone. He's not coming back. Thank goodness her back is to the front of the camera, because I don't know if I could have handled. I was already clenching my toes when they walked into the kitchen. I was like, oh no, here it comes. Oh no. So it is a Captain Phillips moment. It's just shortened and much more delicate, and thank goodness on some kind of level, because she broke my heart just like. But the moment she opened her mouth, she broke my heart. I don't
every
know what
time
it was.
she's on the screen. Yeah.
It's every time. So yes, we will do a much longer discussion about that on our Oscar podcast and our predictions and stuff like that. We'll just pepper it in here and there.
Oh my
we'll
gosh.
just find a reason to talk about the holdovers, because
That's right.
I'm so happy that that's the movie that you and I are completely on the same page about.
Yeah.
I mean, other movies we have connected on and are on the same page, but that one, as soon as I saw your face mention it, I was like, yep, okay, good. He is right there with me. I'm happy about that.
Yeah. And Justine Triet got another nomination for Anatomy of a Fall with her husband. So,
I wondered about that too.
But still, I mean, they made it happen. So like that must have been an interesting process.
I got poor Bradley Cooper. Must be hard
poor,
to be so good.
Oscar nominated writing Bradley Cooper.
Poor Bradley Cooper. He's having a hard time, and we're putting him off talking about it. But I want to talk about this anyway. So, have you seen Justine Triet's Golden Globe speech?
No, I have not.
I've been meaning to talk to you about this.
Oh, okay.
Because I went, huh? When I heard it, and I just rewatched it because I was like, did I make that up in my head, or did she actually say it? She talks about being locked up in her apartment, I think during COVID, writing the screenplay of Anatomy of a Fall with her boyfriend, husband, whatever he is. And she's French, so those words go by very quickly. So I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman that she was talking about. And she says, well, this movie's about this. This movie's about a dog that throws up. This movie's about a suicide. This movie's about this. That movie's about a kid. This movie's about... And
I did hear about this.
I was like, she just said suicide. And so I watched it again
Spoilers
today.
for Anatomy of a Fall?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe?
Shoot.
But maybe not, though. Like, I tend to...
I meant to say spoilers at first because I didn't want to tell anybody that, because I didn't want to influence anybody of what they thought. But anyway, what were you saying?
I mean, I would tend to say that like once she puts that movie out there, it's ours. You know, it's that whole Star Wars thing. It's like, you know, I know George Lucas, I know you wanted it a certain way, but like it's ours now. So you know
he can't have it.
Exactly.
She can have anything back she wants.
Oh,
he
great.
cannot. He can't.
but
He can't. He's got enough.
Well, he got paid off, so like he
can't have
really
my soul too. You're not getting it, buddy. You've had it long enough. Done.
But,
I'm bringing it back.
But that's the fun of it is being able to talk through each of those options. You know, was he pushed, or did he kill himself, or did he fall? Like it's not even two options. There's 3-4 options. So
she definitively says it, and I'm not saying she's saying what we should think and what we should take. But I think I discussed heavily that I thought that guy killed himself during the podcast. And you were like, but wait, this, and this. And which is true.
Yeah.
It could be this, and this. But I kept saying something about that guy.
But what if it's the suicide of the soul of the Sandra Huller character?
Okay. I'm 6'1". I'm 215 pounds. I'm tall. I can reach and stretch and hold heavy things pretty good. That's a big step ladder you're asking for right there. I mean, okay. what's
No,
interesting
it's
about that is that usually I'm the one reading into it. Remember, It Follows? I was like, it's about the AIDS epidemic. And you're like, it's just a dream. It's a nightmare. And, or it's, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare.
It's just a horror movie. Yeah.
I was like, no, I had this whole thing built up in my head. So you can have it could be the suicide of a soul, the suicide of a relationship.
But it's just like the end of Inception. It's like if Christopher Nolan came through and been like, yeah, wasn't it crazy that like it was all, he was still in a dream, and if you're like, what? Oh, what? But then now all of our conversations are now like defunct. Like we still need to have conversations.
Oh,
you're talking about Ridley Scott and Blade Runner?
Yeah. Decker's a replicant.
So I don't get any credit for decoding what's a majiggy. No,
you totally 100% get credit for it.
Okay.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I gave you the biggest compliment. It sounded like something I would say.
Well, I do that for stuff all the time. She's like, hey, that's the one with the guy in the thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you mean Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were saying you got credit for coming up with the suicide of a relationship.
No.
I was okay. No. Yes.
But I did decode.
We have known each other 10 years, so
That's
we
true.
do know each other's language. So, and also, you're just chomping at the bit to make a movie reference, no matter what conversation you're having with anybody. So it's not hard pressed for you to be like, Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, I'm happy. I'm happy for her. I would love to see Anatomy of the Fall win an Oscar. I would love to see people seeing that movie. I can't wait to see Zone of Interest. I can't wait to see American Fiction. I'm excited. I like the pictures that are nominated. I'm glad they are. And when we have our podcast, we could talk more about how they're going to pick the wrong movie for Best Picture.
You still said it. I can boost the audio of that. But
I'm going lightly down my darkened ways because I know that I am opposed to what everybody is celebrating. Not opposed. I'm just not there.
You mean the Oppenheimer train? Is that what you're talking about?
Your words, not mine.
Okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny that's the movie we're talking about.
Okay. Speaking of the Oppenheimer train, Robert Downey Jr., is he still like a lock?
Oh, yeah. I think so. I think so.
Is that a career thing?
No, not at all. Okay. Remember we talked about it. That performance makes sense. He made that movie make sense for me. Mm-hmm. And listen, we cannot go there tonight.
But
because I have my things about that movie, and I want to be nice.
But let me go a couple ways. Like I'm cool with Mark Ruffalo. I mean,
told you.
No, it's fine. But I mean, like, he's not going to win, and that's fine. I don't think he should win for this role, but that's just my opinion, man. And I haven't seen American Fiction, so I can't say anything about Sterling K. Brown or Jeffrey Wright, which I didn't even, I just looked and he got nominated too, so that makes me even more excited. So, but Ryan Gosling, kind of like what we were talking about before, like, he takes a role that it would be hard for anybody else to do that role. Like anybody else at that point in their career, it's talk about threading a needle. Like, how does somebody do that? He's taking all of his previous, whatever it is, like, his image and all of his previous works and all of that. And he's forming this character and it being informed by how it's written, obviously, but also like him as an actor. Like, how does that fit in? Like, and he did it really well. So that should be celebrated too.
I agree. And if he surprisingly wins, I will be 100% happy. I was laughing out loud again
last night
when you watched, the small things, the choices he makes. It's
like when he goes back behind and he's like, sublime. Like,
I love that. And I love when he dances away when she doesn't want to spend the night with him. The camera goes way far and he's tiny and he starts to walk away and he stops. He starts to walk away and he stops and then he starts to dance away. It's hilarious. It's you're right. He did all of those things, and for whatever reason, he got away with it. And his tongue is firmly in his cheek the whole entire time. He actually has a smile on his face, like he knows that he's kind of goofing off here on some kind of level. But
that's what you're saying about Mark Ruffalo. And why did it work for him and not for Mark Ruffalo for me? I don't know. Go on. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know, but it worked for me.
Okay.
It's that cannot use sports or music analogies because I don't know enough about them, but I do want to say it's like you're a drummer. And so you hear, a 4/4 time, and then all of a sudden the timing's different in the middle of the song, and the drummer only meant to do it for that split second. And only that drummer in that band would have done it for like that. It's offbeat, but yet it still works. There's a lot of drummers like that, but Brad Pitt, Mark Ruffalo, there's a few actors out there who the line reading, the actual reading of a line and the way that they deliver it is almost opposite of everything else anybody would have done. And the timing behind what Mark Ruffalo does, he gets away with moments. And I don't know how, I don't know why, but he does. I thought it was perfect because he needed to be the antagonist. At the same time, we need to understand that she was open to anybody, including the antagonist of the movie. So why did it work for you there? I don't know. Maybe because there's vulnerability in the end of Barbie with Ken and then he grows and learns and becomes a better doll for it. Because, when she says, why can't it be Barbie? Why can't I be Barbie and you be Ken? I am you, I am me, and you are you, and that's okay. And in that moment, he shows a vulnerability and an intensity that it wasn't expected. The depths that he goes to there, it wasn't expected. But his comic timing is ridiculous. Yep. It's absolutely phenomenal. So one might say Robert Downey Jr. has the career idea behind him, but so does Ryan Gosling. This is his fourth nomination. And they've been chomping at the bit to give him an Oscar. It was just not his time in La La Land. It just wasn't his time in Half Nelson. It just wasn't his time. And so, it's the idea that you can't take that performance seriously as an Oscar contender and look at it in the same vein as Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, meaning subjectively about performances, because it's a Barbie movie. And that's the reason why people can't see it as a serious Oscar contender. Although if Robert Downey Jr. wasn't in this category this year, Ryan Gosling would be a lock, and it would be spectacular for him to have finally won his Oscar for playing a Ken doll.
Wow. So it's kind of weird that France didn't pick Anatomy of a Fall.
What's up with that?
Well, there's a Julia Binoche movie that they put out there, and it looks like it's very well shot, and that was their submission. And it looks like I watched the trailer. It looks like an interesting movie, and it's one of those like food porn movies where they like carving meats, and they're just like, and there's like a love, kind of like some sort of like love connection between two people who are like the cook and the whatever butler
thief,
guy,
the wife and his lover.
No. But yeah, I don't know. That's what they chose. And then, of course it didn't get chosen, but, Steph and I still have to see Society of the Snow, but that looks harrowing, but I think it'll be interesting. I
just saw Yellow Jackets. I just watched Yellow Jackets. So
I binge watched that too. I mean, a while ago, but like it makes you want to keep watching it.
It does make you want to keep watching it. I was shocked by the end of season 2. I'm not going to spoil anything. And I felt like I was being altered in my personality during watching it. So I was a little scared, and I was kind of glad that I heard the writer's strike. I mean, I'm not glad. I'm being facetious, of course, but I was kind of okay with it. It might not come up with season 3 until 2025 because of the writer's block is what I said.
Yeah.
Right. It pushes everything back. And I'm kind of glad because at the end of season 2, I literally for 3 minutes was like this.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't comprehend what I had did they just do what they did? Whoa. Yeah. It's very well. And, I started watching it because I got Showtime and, Paramount or something for the Golden Globes or something. I don't remember what I got it for. And I was like, oh, Yellow Jackets. And I was like, I can't take this survival cannibalism. I can't do it. Snow, I can't do it. And then Melanie Linsky came on the screen.
Yep.
I said, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. What? And man, I would love to have a cup of tea with Melanie Linsky. I do not want to know Shauna on any level whatsoever. None.
But she's so great at playing those characters. Like,
ridiculous.
Because it's whatever you see in front of you is not what this person is. Because like she does look like PTA book club mom, and then it's other stuff. She's totally different. So,
and I also thought that, she's getting a lot of the accolade recognition. She was just nominated for the Emmy for the second season. But I thought Juliette Lewis knocked it out of the park, too. Yeah. I think she's doing a really great job. I think all the four lead
Christina
women
Ricci,
are... Yeah, she's good. Yeah. She's just... That character.
It's that she doesn't have that filter. She doesn't have that.
Close to the end of the second season, they say, sorry to interrupt, they say something about her being a serial killer. She's like, why is everybody telling me that? And Tanisha, I don't know that actress's name, the African-American female, she said, fact, truth, that's why. And Christina Ricci, as Misty, was like, I don't get it. And it's like, okay, sure. And then they teamed her with Elijah Woods, who's perfect.
Same thing. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's same thing. No, that like built-in filter. Her name is Tawny Cypress.
Tawny, is that her? That's
Tawny
a good
Cypress,
name.
Yeah.
Tawny, I'll never forget it. That's a good name. She's spectacular. And she's spectacular. When she's doing that frozen, staring-eyed woman sleepwalking thing that she does.
Disembodied thing. Yeah.
I was like, no, is that a still frame or is that her? I was like, and then that thing with the eating of the dirt. Anyway, we have spent 42 minutes talking about everything except for Maestro.
Okay, before we get into Maestro, I will say that I know you're going to see Zone of Interest, and I'll say to anybody who's going to see Zone of Interest, try to see it in a theater. You should see it in a theater, definitely. Try to see it in a theater with the least number of people in it, because it's a movie, for me at least, it was a movie that I felt like I needed to experience by myself. Now, maybe you can like shut off the world around you in a movie theater, but you got to lock in. It makes you lock in. It does. It makes you lock in. The filmmaking makes you lock in. All of it. Every element of it makes you lock in. But there is this kind of one-to-one relationship with the screen that I think is beneficial if you are, alone, I think, because there's no other distractions. And so if you're able to go to it at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning or whatever, like that's probably the way to do it.
Well, that's my preference.
Most people can't do that. Yeah.
A 12:30 showing of All of Us Strangers, and there were two guys talking the whole movie, and there were only 12 people in the theater.
Jeez.
And they were doing that whispered talk. And what I wanted to do, which I wanted to stand up and scream, shut up. But and the movie's very quiet and delicate and purposefully paced and beautiful and somber, yet happy, and it's just everything. It's a very well done movie, told by and directed and written by Andrew Haig, the guy who did Looking, that show I was over the moon about. Yeah. And Paul Mescal and Andrew Scott, both
who's awesome. Andrew Scott is like,
hot priest, and yes, he is, and Claire Foy,
oh my
God, and Jamie Bell.
Really? Oh, they're the parents, aren't they?
They're so.
That's right.
Don't.
Okay. All right. Okay. We're backing away.
Yes.
We're backing away.
Yes. Need to back away because we will talk about that movie in the future.
Okay. So now we have to talk about Maestro.
Do we? There's like not a requirement. It's not
so
like
it took me 3 days to watch it the first time.
Me too.
Really?
Yes. Huh. And I wasn't going to admit that.
Huh.
Me too.
That's
crazy. I'm sorry. I'm a little over the top right now. I got
No,
excited
no,
about
no,
everything we
no.
just talked about.
But
yeah,
that okay. So that's a problem. That's a problem with the Netflixification of movies, and that's also a problem with the movie itself. But I rewatched portions of it yesterday. So here's what I'll say. Start with the good. There are scenes in this movie that are very well done. Very well done. And if you take those scenes as their own thing, I think that they are satisfying. But I think the movie as a whole has problems, and it's too bad because you've got Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg produced, Bradley Cooper co-wrote and directed, starring Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan and Sarah Silverman, Matt Bomer. Like, I mean, these are good actors. Like, all of this is lined up, but I wrote down the quote. I didn't write out too much for this movie, but I wrote down that quote at the beginning. A work of art does not answer questions. It provokes them, and its essential meaning is the tension between the contradictory answers. That's a Leonard Bernstein quote. That's at the very beginning of the movie before you see one frame of film. Now, I hope that is not I'm going to do something and you guys just need to deal with it. And, I'm going to throw this out there and I don't have to answer to anybody and I don't have to explain myself to anybody. Like, I hope that's not what it is. But the way the movie plays out is that it seems like he's like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to take into account the audience whatsoever. So you got to come with me. And I'm all about experimental films. Zone of Interest is an experimental film. It is. But there are things that ground you. There are things that hold your interest. There's a logic to that film. And I felt like I missed the logic to this film.
I like how you say stuff like that. When you said that Barry Keoghan's last scene in Saltburn, they didn't earn it, I went, okay. And I have said that ever since. Now that movie has become a phenomenon, and we'll talk about that during the end of our year wrap up.
I've been training for a marathon, and I put Murder on the Dance Floor on my marathon list. So I mean, I've never heard that
running
song.
around the neighborhood naked.
Well, no,
to that. If you are, please film it.
I have a very tasteful loincloth that I wear. It's okay.
That strikes me as even worse. The whole, anyway, don't stop. I agree 100% with you about what you said about Maestro. And as for the 3-day thing, here's the most interesting thing about that for me, because I don't blame it on Netflix and I don't blame it on cell phones or, TikTok. I don't blame it on any of that. I blame it on the fact that I give myself over to focusing on Facebook the first hour I'm up while I'm drinking coffee. I'm fine with that. I did not look at my phone nor even thought about my phone during all of us strangers today. I didn't even think I did not pick up my phone once during The Boy and the Heron. And I took my 14-year-old nephew and he didn't pick up his phone not once. Now he's not as addicted to his phone as most people his age, and he's also very much about that kind of style, anime and that kind of animation.
Miyazaki,
and so it's kind of, yeah. So we watched Spirited Away together for the first time. I had never seen it. He had never seen it. And so now it's a thing. And I mean, there's a whole world he is involved in that I don't understand a thing about. So I'm learning. Anyway, the thing that frightened me about turning off Maestro the first hour of it and watching it a second day is I had to force myself to go back to it. I had to physically sit down. It was like exercising. You know how when you exercise, it might take a little. I always think I'm going to love to exercise and that one day I'm just going to be like, I love this. Never. Not for a split second, but I do love the results and I do love the after feeling. And I do love just the fact that I went and got through it, not as much lately, but that's a whole nother story too. So I was scared I was not going to be able to get through this movie. And if Bradley Cooper's idea of that quote, I'm sure that's not what his idea was, will just come along with me and I'm going to make the movie I want. You're just going to have to deal with it because you're going to have to ponder your own questions and so forth. I think he was legitimately saying that art is in the eye of the beholder, and the discussion and the questions that come up from art and how you see something and how you question something and how I see something and how I question something might be the same, might differ. That's what art is. We've talked about that a million times. I've used that quote a million times. We thought we had the answers. It was the questions we had wrong. Similar thing. What should have happened, in my humble opinion, is Martin Scorsese.
Are you listening, Bradley?
I know, right? I love you. I love you. You tried so hard. But two things were: inertia of the sophomore slump was against him. It just is something that happens. Second albums, second movies, second hit songs. There's something about getting over the sophomore slump that artists have to do. And it seems to be a thing. And I don't know if that's a combination of because he was lifted so high off the ground from Stars Born that he can't see the view, because he's been wanting to make this movie forever. Because he talked to Carey Mulligan when she did her off-Broadway show, Boys and Girls, I think it was called. And that was 8-9 years ago.
But I thought that Spielberg had the rights to Bernstein's story, or to a biopic or whatever of him, and then he ended up, essentially passing it over to Bradley Cooper. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, you said that he wanted to make this movie for a long time. Well, Spielberg had the rights to it, so Spielberg was gonna make the movie, but
that's my understanding, because
okay.
I heard Carey Mulligan talking about Bradley Cooper came to see the play and started talking to her about this biopic about Leonard Bernstein and what's her name?
Montenegro.
Felicia. Yeah, Felicia.
Felicia.
I'm so glad I remembered part of her name. And so it comes down to this. I think maybe Scorsese and Spielberg should have said, "You sure you want to make this your second movie? You showed such talent with The Stars Born. You are epically great as an actor. You have a voice. You have a thumbprint. You have something to say. Are you sure you're ready for this project?"
So this is a quote from Bradley Cooper. He said that he showed Steven Spielberg A Star Is Born, the movie, like they had like a screening or whatever, and like halfway through the movie, actually it was right after the shallow scene, Spielberg got up like out of his seat, and Bradley Cooper was like, "Oh my gosh, he's checked out. Like he's got to go do something else, and he's probably gonna just come over and be like, 'Hey, that's good, kid. Like, way to go. Better luck next time,' or whatever." But what he did was he came over to Bradley Cooper and he said, "You're gonna direct Maestro."
Oh,
and so he's got juice behind him from people who are amazing filmmakers. I mean, did you watch the Spike Lee interview?
No,
with
not
him?
yet.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so
no,
that's
not
another.
Yet.
He saw advanced screenings of that movie. So you got, I mean, like he has the most amazing proofreaders in the world going through and checking his movie. That's hundreds and hundreds of hours of entertainment for us, that it's filtering through. So
it's a lot that he takes on in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's probably, I mean, maybe it's not, maybe it's the same. He's a character. He has a certain character. The character has a certain vocal quality. He has to sing. He has to conduct. I'm not saying any of that should be like looked down upon. I'm not saying any of it's a bad thing. I'm saying that he had a lot to do in this movie, and I think that they just should have said, we should wait. You should do another movie you want to do. Because my understanding is that he's kind of been practicing as a conductor his whole entire life. He's like has this mad fascination with Bernstein and like pretends to be him on a regular basis, and couldn't wait to do that 6-minute scene, which is a great scene in that movie.
That was one of the scenes, the mask.
But
the
it's
Mahler,
because of her.
I mean,
because it's her.
No, well, hold on. She's not in that
scenes-
scene.
Yeah,
She's
at
not
the
in that
end,
scene
she
till the
is.
end. But he takes over the screen during that scene. He is he's believable. Like his emotion is believable when he's
without her
conducting
button,
that Mahler.
The scene wouldn't be as epic as it was.
That's true.
And that was a good choice on his part because he chose to have her say the lines of you would never really hurt anybody. You're a good person, whatever the lines are.
No, she
It's
said
much-
there's no hate in your heart.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. It's much better.
Because
Much better.
earlier that was her thing.
Yeah.
But
And because she says that to him, I saw the scene differently and I saw him conducting differently. I think it still would have been epically great and he's really good in that scene and he's really good in the movie. And she's spectacular.
Yeah.
She's spectacular.
But she always is though.
It doesn't matter. She's really good in this. So
She is.
I'm glad she's getting another Oscar nomination.
But she also has like her character is so just she just gets dumped on. Like it's just not.
There's so many questions. So why black and white? It's not like he went
4x3.
right. Why? Like why?
It's
Because
the cool
it's not
thing.
like
Everybody's doing it.
well, so was crack at one time that I still don't want to smoke crack. I'm being funny, but it's not like it goes from 1970 to 2023 where we're in a modern day world and that's why it comes to color. It goes from the 50s to the 70s to the early 80s, well, mid 80s. So why black and white? Just imagine how all of that looked in color. That all those 50 poodle skirt dresses and the high heels and the satin and the smoking and just the
I think it was more like TV. Like TV was in black and white during that time, and then TV was in color and 4x3 during that time, and then it does transition to widescreen.
If that's the reason,
well, it does transition to widescreen after. Spoilers for real life. After she dies, it transitions, and they're driving away from the Tanglewood house or whatever it is. He transitions from color 4x3 to widescreen, the Academy like 4x3, and so and then that's when you hear him driving up, and then the REM song "It's the End of the World as You Know It" is playing as he drives his Jaguar up onto the lawn. And he gets out right after it says Leonard Bernstein, and then he goes into the rest of that. So
it's almost unavoidable, but I wish he hadn't done it.
Yeah,
I wish he had. It's almost unavoidable because that's how our world knows that name on some level. So let's go back to the beginning of the film real quick. So when he opens the curtains and it's still black and white, and Matt Bomer is in the bed. And then he does that incredible shot where he's running down the hall and then the camera flips over and then it goes into the theater or to the orchestra hall.
That's Carnegie Hall.
Okay. That is actually Carnegie Hall?
It's a CG representation of Carnegie Hall when he walks into it. Yeah.
That when the camera spun, it should have gone to color then.
That'd be cool.
I just didn't understand what was the purpose of the black and white to color. It didn't add anything to it for me. And I kept looking at, there's a scene when she first comes to that party and she gets off that bus. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see that street looks beautiful. The way it's lit, the way it's shot, it's beautiful. And it is textured in a different way because it's black and white. And maybe that's why it looks so gorgeous. But I just kept thinking to myself, what does that look like in color? Because I bet you it's spectacular in color. So not that I'm opposed to using black and white for an effect or using black and white in a film. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I was raised on, in the beginning of TV, black and white TVs. So that's how far back I go. Speaking of black and white TVs, I remember the day we got our first color TV. Crazy. Back in the day when we used to harvest the farm, we would come in and watch color TV. Anyway, so that's a question. And then my main question is, why are we watching this movie about this guy? Okay, because he was this incredible maestro. He was this incredible conductor. He was this incredible writer. He, worked on Broadway. He did all of this stuff. But where is that in the movie? So I started to think about I learned nothing about him as why he is so famous. Why is he in the REM song? Now,
It's because people learned about classical music from him on television. He
right.
was
So
on
where
TV
is that?
like every week talking about that.
Where
It's
is
not there.
that? Right.
It's not
And I
there.
started to think about every biopic out there, the trappings of all the biopics. And actually, he avoided a lot of the trappings of the biopic. But in a way, those explain a lot of things that we're never going to know about Tina Turner. We're never going to know about Freddie Mercury. We're never going to know about Johnny Cash other than what we saw in those movies. And there's example after example after example in those movies where, the Oscar clip of Rami Malek playing Freddie Mercury when he's Mama, ooh, when he's doing that, it has been laughed at since, because I don't know, it just looks weird to people. But the point is that you see how Freddie Mercury's mind works and what made him so talented. When he's singing that ballad that he says to her, I was singing it to you, but 80,000 people in Wembley is singing it back to me. When they create Another One Bites the Dust, when they create We Will Rock You, that shows the power of Queen and why they are so talented. You can go over and over and over. Tina Turner, when she's at the Apollo and she doesn't want to go out, and he abuses her, and then she's on stage and the one tear drops, and he comes and he kind of backs up on her and gives her a kiss, and then she opens the mouth and out comes Tina. She was able to do all of that after just getting beaten up. That shows us something about why Tina Turner is at the place she's at in our world. None of that's there in this movie.
No. I mean,
they talk about it.
Yeah, maybe he assumes that we're all just as big of fans of Leonard Bernstein as he is, and he's like, I already know about all that stuff. I'm going to show you the other stuff. It's like,
which
okay.
is what though?
Which is also struggling confusing. With his sexuality, and
is it a struggle
living.
Though?
Well, I mean,
he straight up says hello to that guy, rubs his face, and kisses him the moment he meets him.
Struggling with how his sexuality would be perceived in the public.
Is he brushes a guy's face and then kisses him that he just met, literally swings around and says hi and kisses him.
I'm talking about in the public, like in the public, not people around him. I'm talking about like the public, like okay. On television or whatever,
And not to be antagonistic, where's that scene?
It's not that, like, I mean, there's the one scene where he's walking with Matt Bomer after they're both married and have kids, and then he kind of like stops and starts to break down a little bit, and Matt Bomer comes up to him and like strokes his face and kisses him on the forehead and says like, he doesn't even say anything actually, but then Leonard Bernstein says, those people across the way think that can't be Leonard Bernstein. Like he's constantly aware of the gaze of the public, quote unquote public. That's what I got from that one scene, but that's a very small scene. So there are scenes that are earned. To go back to the whole like earned it thing from Saltburn. But the one thing that bugged me a lot the second time that I kind of watched through certain sections of the movie was that and it struck me as odd the first time, but there's a scene close to the end of the movie where Carey Mulligan kind of goes through, she's talking about how they've kind of essentially separated, and she's the one who thought that she didn't need his affection and thought that she could go without it and just that would be okay. But she didn't realize that she did need that. And then she says all this stuff, and then at the very end she says, any questions? And then it cuts.
Right.
And then I was like, that's so weird. But then the last scene of the movie and the last words that Leonard Bernstein says is, any questions? And it's like, it's supposed to work, but it doesn't work because it's not earned. It's tacked on because she's talking to Sarah Silverman, and I don't know.
It's supposed to, I thought actually when you talk about those two scenes and not having to watch the hour in between them, that actually works for me. that actually worked for me, because what it's doing is it's showing that they can guess each other's numbers that they're thinking of, which should have been repeated a couple more times in the movie, by the way.
I think two times is fine. Two times is fine, but
three times is a motif. It makes it
is the
make sense.
motif. Yeah,
It makes it make sense to me. But Bradley can do what Bradley wants to do. But at least they were showing you that, for me, what I took from Any Questions is that this is none of your business. None of this is your business. How I feel about my marriage with my gay husband is none of your business. And so there's no way for me to ever explain it to you. So if you have questions, good for you, but good luck, because there aren't answers other than what's inside our soul. And actually, her trying to figure out why she gave up being desired. Okay. Speaking of Matt Bomer, he's in that show Fellow Travelers, and Alice on Girls, and I just lost her name.
Which one are you talking about? Allison Williams?
Yes, thank you. Gosh, I could not think of her name for the life of me. She says something similar close to the end of that how would you feel about never being desired? Like, that's broke my soul, basically. It broke me never to be desired, and in particular by you. So that exploration is something that happens in Fellow Travelers, and I would have liked to have seen some of that in this movie. It would have made it make sense. So I just want to bring up one more thing, and then we can continue or call it quits, whatever. I think Bradley Cooper, it strikes me like he had all of these great ideas, but yet somehow the way that he connects them doesn't feel organic. They feel stitched together. It's like he made a quilt, and then he ripped part of that quilt, and then made another quilt, ripped part of that quilt, and then put it together. But yet it's still beautiful, and it's still great looking quilts, but they don't match. They're not meant to be together. A lot of those things happen like that in this film. In particular, I would like to sit down, and maybe he'll never talk to me again once he hears me do my podcast on Bradley Cooper and Should Have Waited, Maestro. Our podcast, that is. You remember when he finishes his opera, his opus?
The Mass, yeah.
Yes. And he walks into the room and he says, "I'm finished." And she stands up, runs out to the pool, dives into the pool.
I have no idea why.
Well, yeah.
It's bad. It's not good. There's no reason.
Well, I thought, maybe she's got to get used to blotting out the sound of the world now that he's going to finally be back in the limelight because he's finished this music, and now it's going to be all about him again, when it was about family at one point and stuff like that. I wish I could have connected it to something, because Carey Mulligan's excellent in that scene and she doesn't say a word, but yet I understand her intentions on some level, but I don't understand what that has to do with the movie. And I'll give you one more example because I just have to get it out. Thanksgiving, and the only argument that we see them have
is who put Snoopy in the vestibule.
Okay, that's how the scene started. And then during their argument, when his point is not being made and she's done with him, the big Snoopy floats down the Macy's Day Parade. Yeah. So was that because Snoopy was representing him not treating her, just throwing her in the vestibule and putting her to the side, and that you will never get away with it because it will always float and get bigger, and it's going to be right in front of your face, but you're going to refuse to see it? Is that what that meant? I'm not asking you to explain it. I'm just saying, to me, those things should have been instinctually known. Whether or not your interpretation of what that scene was and what my interpretation of that scene, we might have had two different things, thus the quote in the beginning of the film. But I just sat there and thought to myself, well, that's got to mean something, but I'm thinking about not knowing what it means versus instinctually having an emotional reaction to it. And that's the way the whole movie plays for me. And I'm a little surprised, because to me, he strikes me as somebody who definitively knew what he wanted. I mean, you could tell by the art direction. You could tell by the music that's used. You can tell by the performances. You can tell by the shots that he chooses that he knew what he wanted, but yet when he strung it together, so there it is.
Yeah. I mean, so you talk about having a no man, you know, like having someone to tell you no.
Yes.
I wonder if he didn't have anybody to tell him no.
Spielberg and Scorsese, they should have known. They should have. Well, for conversation point, I don't know anything about making films. I'm saying that with their experience, did they think that From A Star Is Born, which is a spectacular movie, and we loved it to death, and I've seen it like 3 times now, and I almost started watching it again after Maestro because I was like, oh, I need my palate cleaned. And I thought, give me something that I love from him. So I started watching Silver Linings Playbook. Hard pressed as it is.
Imagine that.
I just don't understand why they thought this was a good idea. I think a smaller film, him and somebody in an elevator, him and somebody else stuck working together at a donut shop, something so he can hone in on what his thumbprint really is. Because I think at this point, because he's only made 2 films, his thumbprint's all over the place. And somewhere in Maestro, it's there. And maybe we'll see it in the next project. And luckily, it's garnished as good of reviews as it has bad reviews, and it has received multiple Oscar nominations. So he will be given money for his next project. So that's good.
Yeah.
He just needs to call me and say, Paul, should I? No. No.
That's right.
First of all, send me my check and let me cash it.
You got to get paid for that. I mean, for your opinion, of course.
And
yes.
then, well, it's not an opinion. If it's based on knowledge of a subject, it's, well, maybe that's an opinion, but I don't know.
It's an informed opinion.
Well, yeah. Okay. Sure. If we're going to dream, let's dream big, because somehow I'm getting a conversation with Scorsese in there and Spielberg in there too. If we're talking about me telling Bradley, no, I just think that he was not, he should have been in it, not directed it. He should have directed it, not been in it. He should have.
I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's so and you'll watch the Spike Lee thing. But one thing I took away from that is that he's to the point now in his career that like when he's on the set, like he knows what he wants in that scene. And so he's had to just like be the actor on set and internalize all that stuff and just like, you know, push that down. And now, now that he's in a position where he can produce his own films and co-write his own films and direct his own films, like he's gonna have the idea of what he wants in that. And so it's gonna be. I'm sure I know he'll still do Rocket Raccoon if they ever want him to come back, but in some other manner, What If or whatever.
Well, he's acted in movies in between that,
and he has done
Stars Born and this. He was in Nightmare Alley.
He was in Nightmare Alley, but also that's Guillermo del Toro. So like, there's people you don't say no to, you know, as far as like, he's probably got a list. I'm sure that Steven Spielberg is one of them. And I'm sure that Scorsese and Spike Lee, I'm sure that those guys are on that list also, but you know, he's not going to do the A-Team Part 2. So it's,
well, look, ending on a positive note for me, I love him. Yeah. I think he's an artist. I think he's a creative, and I have faith that he will do great things in the future. And really, you know, was somebody going to tell Spielberg not to do Jaws as his second movie? You know, no, you're going to go bigger. You're going to go bolder. You might as well push it all to the limits. And he did. He tried to go bigger and bolder, and he did something that he's never done before. So you got to give him credit for at least trying. And I believe that there's stuff in this movie that if I happen to catch it on a rainy Sunday and I just watch it through, then I might look at it differently in the future, that something might click differently. You know, there are movies on the Best Picture list this year that I don't feel that way about, that I feel very definitive about how I felt about it on a second or third watch, I don't think I'm going to change how I feel about it. I have changed how I felt about things because it felt differently the second time I saw it. Nightmare Alley not being one of them. But I did watch it a second time because I thought it warranted trying to figure out what everybody else was saying about this film. And I think Maestro falls into that category. He tried something different and bold, and the bold choice always is the winner for me. So good for him that he is pushing himself as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and like you said, he'll get another chance. So that I'm excited to see what he decides to pour himself into, because it seems like it's probably an all-encompassing thing for him. So you can tell he really cares. So that's good. He's not just getting a paycheck. So that's pretty cool. All right. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. We'll see you next time.